Greetings from ABC Acres. I'm Grant Shadden. Here in our greenhouse, where right now outside it's 10 degrees, but inside it's 52 degrees, without any kind of heating other than our climate battery system, which I'm not going to get into today. We've got a previous video on that, so if you're interested, you can check that out. What I am going to talk about is air pruning and how you can make your own grow bags, is what they're commonly referred to as, these fabric plant containers that will air prune the roots of your plants, leading to longer term storage before transplanting, but also much healthier, much more vigorous root system. And this is a method, a technique for making these that I learned from another YouTuber, Larry Hall, and ours is going to be a little different because of the material we had to work with, but the same idea applies. Now, we're going to be transplanting some of these elderberries that we propagated from branch cuttings, and that was from a previous video as well. They've been in water for several weeks now. It's time to start potting them up, and we're going to do a side-by-side comparison through the winter and spring of just typical standard plastic pots, transplanting them into some of these containers, and then we are going to show how to quickly make a grow bag for air pruning purposes and see if we have any different growth rates, and even wash off the potting soil afterwards to show the differences in the root structure. Now, air pruning happens when you have some kind of permeable fabric. Sometimes they're plastic pots with these different hole configurations, but essentially the root will hit an area where it's air and it's dry, and so the plant effectively sloughs off either through it drying out or burning out, as some people might say, that root, and it just dead ends there. But what happens is lateral roots will form behind that. They'll push out. Now, what can happen with these standard plastic pots is once the root hits a side, it has this impermeable surface material, and so it doesn't dry out. It starts moving along and searching for more water, more nutrients, more room to grow, and that can lead to problems down the line for the plant. These circling or spiraling roots, or where they start twisting on themselves. It can lead to a plant, especially if it's a tree or a shrub, or a more long-term perennial as opposed to an annual plant that is going to continue its root growth after you've eventually planted it into the ground. That deformed root structure is going to affect the long-term health of that plant. So an application of starting those kinds of trees, shrubs in something like a air pruning grow bag would lead to a much more vigorous, faster growing, and really long-term healthier tree. Sometimes you'll see trees where roots have basically strangled the plant itself through curdling, and all the early research and trials are showing that the roots in a grow bag do not do that. So we're going to make some now. What I have here is weed cloth or landscaping cloth or fabric. It depends, some people call it different things, but essentially we had just some leftover from a landscaping project, and we're going to use the scrap. Instead of throwing it away, we're going to make some nice grow bags for ourselves. Now, you could get a longer roll and just have a continuous seam along it that you could sew on one side. So we effectively just took a couple feet of this weed cloth, folded it over on itself, had the line sewn actually by Tim's oldest son. He was nice enough to do that for us for a little sewing project. And once you have that, the way Larry Hall explains it is you just bunch up wherever you want it, say about a foot, and then he recommends zip ties, and I would too, except we didn't have any. But when you are a farmer, you always have good friends in either In this case, this is just, people would call it binding wire, but it was actually leftover electric fence wire, and also, of course, our ever faithful baling twine. And we can just tie this off and then cut, and actually we'll tie in 2 spots and then just cut it in between and then turn it inside out, and we'll have our root bag. All right, I've got it tied there in 2 spots, and then I'm gonna go ahead and cut it. So here is a finished one turned inside out. So it's basically about the same size as a 1-gallon pot here. And I'm gonna go ahead and fill both of these up with soil and get some of our elderberry cuttings that have started to root into the potting soil, and then we will let them grow and we'll revisit it and compare the results. Okay, for comparison purposes, I've got a couple cuttings that are pretty much exactly the same in terms of their development, just so we have a fair comparison of growth rate, root structure, and things like that when we revisit this later on. So I'm going to go ahead and just make a little hole in each of these. And as you can see, the root bag here is holding its form pretty well and is fairly stable, which is nice to see. And there you go. We've got our 1-gallon standard plastic pot, and then our approximately 1-gallon landscape or weed cloth root bag for air pruning. And I'm excited to see the results. Everything that I've read and researched on this air pruning and root bag growing is very promising. It's a technique that is just starting to gain more and more popularity, and it's a innovative idea that we wanted to share. So we will keep in touch with this little experiment and pot up the rest. We'll probably mix and match a little bit more of the plastic versus the air pruning root bags. That way we'll have more of a traditional experiment, so we have more numbers to compare, so we don't just have 1 and 1. And yeah, it'll be fun to watch this development. Well, if you have any questions, please put them in the comment section below. And as always, thanks for watching.